When the choice seems to be to tear down the church,
or build a wall around it,
we aim to walk the narrow road of nuance
through the wilderness between the warring factions,
and try to figure out what it means
to love God
and people well.
I don't know if you have anything on your mind for today's episode. I actually did,
Okay.
but I wanted
Let's
to
hear
ask
what you've got.
Okay.
I have a thought, but let's hear your thought. Because there is this possible world in which they coincide,
Okay.
which would be kind of cool.
It would. So my thought is a question, and this just randomly popped into my head. I'm not quite sure why, but do you remember the first time that you had the conscious thought of listening to a pastor or some kind of spiritual authority and thinking, I don't know about that? So that's one idea. What was yours?
Okay. Honestly, that they may coincide, though they're different.
Okay.
There's a couple things. You know, you had mentioned kind of the possibility of going through and talking through comments, which we kind of had a little dialogue about, and then I think we got busy. In line with that, I've seen a whole lot of things just regarding acknowledging that people are hurting, and kind of this statement of you should treat everyone as if there's something wrong with their life right now. And kind of then just having the awareness of, you know, there is something wrong with everyone's life right now. Let's be honest. Like, there's no one walking around who's like, hey, this place is perfect. And if they are, give me whatever they're on, because they've got to be on something. Don't really give it to me, but they've got to be on something if they're ignoring just A, the current state of the world, B, what we know the current state of the world's supposed to be and is going to continue to be, you know, and then just how you handle yourself. Again, not all together a new topic for us, but I kind of was thinking about that in light of just the comments, because, man, it's so easy, and we've talked about this before too, but on social media or platforms, and I've never thought of it in line with comments on podcasts, but to go out there and say whatever you want without realizing how it may come across and how we can be kind even when we're saying, hey, I disagree. So I don't know. And I don't know that that's completely opposite of what you're talking about with your question, because I think that's part of even listening to someone and having the thought without necessarily raising a red flag and saying, hey, look at this heretic. Not that there aren't some out there, but are there ways that are going to help a message come across better than screaming? And the answer is yes, in most cases, you know, unless someone's about to get ran over and then scream.
Yes. Well, and really, kind of where my question is coming from is I was thinking about kind of formative things, and sometimes I was talking with my parents the other day about the first time I realized that movies could be bad. I don't know if you've had that experience where, you know, as a kid you just watch movies and you either like them or you don't. But at some point you see a movie and you're like, oh, that wasn't good. I didn't know that there were movies out there that weren't good.
Yeah, that's a good comparison.
And so in a similar way.
And even just...
Go ahead.
Well, and even just like how different things can hit you at different times in your life. I mean, there's times I watch something that I know I watched as a kid, and I'll try to watch it with my kids, and it comes on, and I'm like, oh, nope. Hey, let's wait a couple of years.
Yeah.
And it's like I never picked up on that, and it's because the eyes I was looking at it through were very innocent and didn't realize these things were something you talked about or that existed. And then when you realize it, it's like, man, that kind of paints a different backdrop for everything I'm taking in, when I know that not everything out there is good. Not every person has ill will, you know, in everything they do. And then you realize, hey, there's something to this. And so I don't know. I think thinking lines of movies. I mean, even I had a question not too long ago about favorite movies, and the one that popped in my head was like, probably not the place to say that's one of my favorite movies. And so it's like, okay, what's number two? Or
what was it?
One of my favorite movies is Boondock Saints.
Okay.
Such a great movie.
Why
but it
is
was
it
like,
wrong
you
to
know,
What's wrong with saying
maybe
that?
this in the audience for that one. Maybe I go to number 2 or 3. Just because, I mean, even different content. I wouldn't have watched that at 12 years old.
Well, no, of course not. It's not
But
made for
as
12
you're older and you realize the message of the movie, it changes things. And I think the one I subsequently threw out was Truman Show. And it's not so much because I'm like a huge Jim Carrey fan or anything, but the message of that movie is kind of cool. And like the parallels it draws to today is like, man, we're living in this fake world and don't even realize it, in some ways, or this kind of new environment that's been manufactured in many ways. But
for me, it was favorite movies is a different conversation, but this actually is one of my favorite movies. My parents and I were talking about Jurassic Park, and I saw it too young. I'll tell you that. It's a great movie, but it scared the crap out of me. And I loved it as a movie, but I had nightmares I don't remember how old I was when I saw it. I was not old enough. I had nightmares for years about dinosaurs chasing me. But what was funny is that one of the first times I realized movies could be bad was Jurassic Park 3, which is bad. And then the other one was Star Wars Attack of the Clones, the second prequel.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh, that was bad. Anyway.
Yeah.
and not like content bad. This was poorly made and poorly written and poorly acted. Bad.
Yeah, and that's kind of a different kind of bad, isn't it? Because that's what
is.
I mean, more the Boondock Saints, it's like there's some tough subject matter in there, and just the stuff that's addressed, even though in their minds, this is justice, what we're doing, and maybe is, but yeah.
Well, it kind of raises the question, I'm going to spoil a movie that's like 80 years old, To Kill a Mockingbird. At the end of this movie, there's an antagonist who's doing terrible things, and this antagonist ends up getting killed before he can be arrested and go through the due process. And we watched it in civics class, and I remember our civics teacher after the movie was done, she turned it off and she got up there and she said, "Okay, was justice served?" And it was an interesting question. How do you define justice? Are we okay when, the established system of justice is circumvented when the outcome is something that we think maybe should have happened or whatever? And with Jurassic Park, it's very much like the hubris of mankind and, playing God and what happens when what we try to control gets out of our control. And it's, told through the metaphor of these dinosaurs that are eating people. It's very extreme results or application of that principle. But, I mean, the fear is what stuck with me through my childhood. But then as I got older, I appreciated it more for the questions it was raising.
Yeah, and sometimes that's what a good message does, is it makes you think. It makes you ask questions. It makes you wrestle with things, I think that's what, good movies do sometimes.
So to tie this back into the question I asked, if I may, I remember, or I don't know if this was the first time, but I was young. We were living in Camden at the time, so I couldn't have been older than 8, probably. I was probably younger than 8. And Dad being on staff at the church, we were up there 72 hours a week or whatever. And they did a revival, as many churches in the South do, and they brought this guy in. And so it was on and off night, but we were there. And he was one of these kind of good old boy, wind you up sorts. And I don't even mean that negatively. You just know what I'm talking about. All right, y'all. Very much about kind of getting the crowd going and everything. And a lot of what he was saying, I thought was great. I remember that much. And the thing that stuck out to me as I was in the throes of being like, is he was given a lot of these kind of one-liners or 1-2 punch statements like, if you da-da-da-da-da, then you da-da-da-da-da, yeah, kind of thing. I don't know if you've ever been to a revival, but these guys can be like that. You know what I'm talking about. I'm sure our listeners do. But the thing that he said that stuck out to me was, come as you are. No, get dressed up. And, I was 8 years old or whatever, and I was like, I don't know about that. And it was interesting because I was in the full throes of agreeing with all these other things that the dude said that I thought were good, but that sticks out as a moment where I was like, he was older. He was in his 60s at least. But I found myself as, a kid of whatever age being like, I'm not so sure about that. I don't know. That sounds more like your opinion than Scripture.
Yeah.
And, of course, what did I know at that age? But even then, I remember being like, I don't know about that.
Well, and especially if it's stated in that way, like it's kind of cringy. Like, come as you are. Nah. Like, you can find this in Scripture, but no. This,
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't love that.
I didn't love it either.
There.
Obviously. But in the same way, it got me thinking to the point you were making a second ago about the form of the message. And we've talked with, quite a bit about this when we were talking about art and when we had Josh Porter on the show talking about the music he'd made with Showbread and some of the content of his books, or even his book, With All Its Teeth, that is about Christians making art. That, on paper, and I would tell him this, on paper, I would agree with the point that he's making. My question comes in of like, how far is too far? And not just when we're talking about art, to the point you were making earlier of, at what point do people need to be, for lack of a better term, provoked or kind of nudged out of their comfort zone or out of the rhythm that they're in, to be made to think. Obviously, you and I just both said, I don't know that I like that. But on the other hand, I remember it 30 years later. And it's something I continued to think about. I don't think that's what he intended. I don't think because I went the other direction from what he was saying. But it kind of does, it raises an interesting point about, because you and I are both like, this really stuck with me when you said there's a difference between bold and loud, and I think that's true. Yeah. But this does throw kind of an interesting slant on the question of how far is too far, either in art or in discourse, and how hard you can push people for the sake of getting them to really examine the truth.
Yeah. Because I think a lot of times we need to be pushed. I told someone this the other day. I mean, I can love and appreciate good teaching, but good teaching doesn't always step on my toes the way I need it to. There's something to be said for yes, speaking the truth, teaching the truth, but step on my toes because I need it. I mean, and the truth will do that, but the stepping on your toes sometimes gets the person's attention. Yes, if someone's listening and focused and trying to receive what they should from good teaching or preaching or a revival, then maybe it's not an issue. But I think we all know we have buildings full of people that make up the church who will sit in there Sunday after Sunday, listen, and maybe even it looks like they're engaged, but then they walk out the door and their life's no different. And the same cycle happens week after week. And I think part of that's because we're not willing to push on or step on toes enough to wake people up. Often we're happy to just, to your point earlier, be comfortable and not, even though we're hearing truth and we know maybe we should change, we're not being pushed enough to actually make that change.
It's interesting because I had a couple of, I'll call them prophets, who were mentors to me when I was younger. Prophets in the sense of not like they were telling the future.
Teaching.
Yeah, yes,
Right.
very, very like, here's what this is. And I was at an age where I kind of needed to be confronted with that. But one of them in particular, Ken Weston is his name. He, one day just off the cuff, it was in a casual conversation, just laid out the different offices in the church and how they work together just off the top of his head. And is another thing that really stuck with me, because he said, you need the prophet to kind of tear the scabs off the wounds that are festering. And then you need the one with the gift of mercy to come in behind them and bind up the wounds that the prophets made. And then you need the teacher to come in after them and point the direction and point the way forward. And it was just like, oh, I've never heard that explained that way before. That makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
And it seems to me as though we tend to want to fall into one of those camps or the other, or to see value in one of those giftings or offices versus the other one. If we are merciful, we tend to value mercy. If we are, have a strain of prophet, or the truth is really important to us, or we respond well to having our toes stepped on, we have a tendency to think that that's what other people need too. And these things don't work without each other.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's almost, to your point, it's not that you don't need those, it's that you need all of them.
Yes. Yeah.
It's kind of like the fruit of the Spirit. I mean, there may be one that's easy for you. Doesn't mean you ignore the others.
Yeah, for sure.
They're all fruit that we should be known by.
Mm-hmm. Something I've appreciated about our friendship is that I feel like one issue that we are good about kind of prodding each other to remember and think through is the whole, like, on the one hand, humanity is depraved, sinful, terrible creatures, but on the other hand, we are deeply loved and pursued by our Creator. Yeah. And I think each one of us has a different tendency in approaching that issue, but we are able to get each other, hopefully, to think along the lines that we don't naturally gravitate to, and that actually helps balance us out more, and that's kind of the point of how the body of Christ is supposed to work.
Yeah. You think there's one of those I gravitate toward?
Well, you've said as much.
I know. I'm messing with you.
Okay.
I'm messing with you. Yeah, 100%.
I'm a little tired this week.
I think that's, I was like, he's not laughing. I think that's one of those things you have to be aware of. Mm-hmm. And like you said, I mean, have people in your life who are gonna push you to understand, like, or else I'll just sit and be like, yeah, I'm a sorry sack of crap, and
I agree.
And while I am biblically, there's hope, and there's things I'm supposed to do in light of that. It'd be one thing to accept that and live life in such a way.
Yeah.
What you do is you say, okay, because of this, I've got to really lean into God's love and His mercy and His provision here. Even though we may be selfishly inclined to try and pursue what we can do, like that's never going to be enough.
Yeah.
Just doesn't work that way.
No, it doesn't.
That's not my thoughts. That's biblically. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah. So, if I may, what is your answer to that question of, can you think of the first time you thought, I don't know about that, or an early time maybe?
Yeah. Man. I mean, I could think of quite a few times. I mean, I'm trying to think of which one's the earliest, and I don't know offhand if I can recall that. But I mean, even different times of not so much the things said, but the way people have handled themselves, even I think can be a part of that.
Yeah.
I can for sure think of things that have been said. I mean, I've shared even on here before, there being a business meeting at the Southern Baptist Church I was at years ago, and someone standing up and basically saying, I don't know what the Bible says, but here's what we've always done, and we should keep doing it. And that being one of those things that's like, hold up, did I hear that right?
Oh yeah, I got a few of those.
and so there's that, which is along the lines, but even having a pastor years ago that, as he was retiring, I mean, was literally and figuratively counting down the days. I mean, because he'd say from the pulpit, I have this many more days. But you could tell it because, I mean, even little things like taking notes once, and I was like, man, this is real familiar. And I was able to go back in my notes and find the exact same sermon less than a year previously.
Yeah.
Not that we don't need to hear things multiple times, but I mean verbatim, the outline, like the same. And there's this thing of like, okay, we've checked out. because we're almost done, or because things have gotten to a point where it's tough, and so I'm going to take the easy road. And I think that can communicate just as much as words, like, hey, what are we doing here? In some ways.
Often
But I think
stronger.
youth ministry too. What's that?
Often stronger.
Often stronger. Yeah. Yeah. I think also, I mean, some of your ministries that you've got young people in. I mean, when I was in youth group, I remember hearing things and just being like, that doesn't sound like what my parents have told me. And maybe that's true. And maybe I need, you go back and look. We've talked a lot about this in some of the deconstruction episodes.
Yep.
Some of what the church or parents or whatever told us years ago, we should look biblically and see if it's in there and if it's true. At the same time, I mean, those people care for you. And so if they've said something, maybe there's a reason.
Yeah.
And it's not as simple as that. But
well,
I think, often people young in ministry are trying to teach and say things well and are learning. And so there's got to be some grace in that. But you hear stuff that's just like, I don't know, that's different, especially when you're young and in those formidable years.
Well, and I think for the most part, we're doing the best we can overall at a given time when it comes to those kind of things. That's what we like to think about our parents and ourselves as parents or as leaders or what have you. And that I think the number of people who think of themselves as actively doing evil and delighting in it is probably smaller, at least in the context we're talking about. But, we're still human. And we're still going to make bad choices. Or just, it's an issue of maturity. I hopefully am a better human, whatever that means exactly, at 40 than I was at 30. More mature, more loving, more patient, more knowledgeable, more wise. I hope all those things. That's what you would expect. And some of the conversation around like public figures who, they did such and such way back when. Yeah, that was 20 years ago. What did you do 20 years ago that you wouldn't want somebody to know about? I don't mean it to be dismissive of things that need to be talked through, but there is that thing of like, even the example I gave, I have a different understanding of that guy's comment now than I did when I was 8 years old. That, it's that kind of issue about appearance and, how you should dress for church or whatever is much more filtered through, say, Paul in, I think it was 1 Corinthians, saying, look, one person considers this day holy and the other one doesn't. One person eats this stuff and the other one doesn't. Each one does so as to God. So don't be all judgy on each other for that, but make sure that your heart is in the right place. And so now, get dressed up if that's meaningful to you. Bless you, seriously. There's still some things like, I grew up in the South, so it's unlikely I will ever wear a hat in a church sanctuary. There's just something about it. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. Like, there's nothing in Scripture that says that, but there's just something about it to me that feels weird. So it's a different lens that I have now than I had then. Yeah. And that's what you would expect and hope for, I think. I hope you can tell the difference between me now and when I was 20 in a positive way.
Yeah. Yep. I get that. I mean, I'm the same way. And for the longest, I wouldn't wear jeans into a church service. I may wear a hat to we have something going on and we're walking into the worship center. It's like a lunch or something. But to a service, like a Sunday morning service, I'm with you, even though I really like wearing hats. There's likely never been an episode of this where I haven't had one on.
I don't think so.
Granted, people are just more recently seeing that maybe. But the same thing with jeans. Man, for the longest, it just felt weird. I was wearing khakis or slacks and a button-up shirt because I grew up doing that. There would be Sundays I'd wear a suit. And I don't know, at this point, I'm typically wearing, jeans or a nicer pair of colored Levi's or something. You know what I mean? Like, that's just, and I don't think it's wrong. It's just the way I grew up. That was kind of important to me for a long time. And then I think there was this point where I was like, why am I doing this?
Yeah.
Is this because I'm trying to come into the service with my best, or is it because I want people to look at me a certain way? And there's an aspect of that that can happen. Even beyond the superficial things like what we're wearing, it can be what am I bringing to the community I'm in and surrounded by? Am I bringing them what I really need to talk through, which I would argue is the best in some of those situations, or am I just trying to make things look like everything's fine, nothing's wrong, and that's probably not the best we can bring because it's not helpful in growing. Not that you lay all your stuff out there. I mean, there's people that are there for you, and there's people who aren't. So you need to be wise. But I think really bringing our best sometimes is just bringing what we should to the situation, and that can change and be different. I definitely, like you, understand it differently than now, and I don't know. I picked on youth ministry earlier. Part of that's because I helped as an intern for youth ministry for a couple of years, and just growing up, you just see things of like what we make it, and really more of it's on my heart. I watched this 3-part series that Paul Washer did on biblical manhood, and one of the things he focused on is like this lie of adolescence, of this middle ground where boys get to act like men and have none of the consequences of your decisions. And he's like, that doesn't exist. Like that's something fake we've created, and we should be growing up boys in a way that they transition from being a boy to a man, and it's very clear.
Was it you that was talking
that
about?
Change has happened, and
I forget if it was you that was talking about this or if it's something I read somewhere. So correct me if I've got this wrong. But there was an article that pointed out that in so many cultures in the world, you have some kind of transitional rite of passage from childhood to adulthood for boys and girls, and that Western culture in America doesn't really have that. You might have small pockets of that, like you might have an event that's a transitionary event, but like in Jewish culture, you have a bar mitzvah or a bat mitzvah,
right?
Or in in some African cultures, there's a particular hunt that you have to go on, or other places there's a journey that you have to make, or a pilgrimage, or you have to make something, or if in some of the trades, like if you're going to be a blacksmith or something, or a welder, there's a certain kind of thing you have to forge, or a certain kind of weld you have to be able to do before it's like, okay, you're in now. And that for our maturity, at least in our culture, there really isn't that. There are things that are held up to be that, but they don't actually necessarily require you to make the transition. It used to be, graduating high school, graduating college, going into your career, having a family, buying a house. And those things can still kind of serve the purpose, but I have known people who have done all those things but have not matured beyond who they were in high school, or their late teens, early 20s necessarily. And I think that's something that we have all, in our culture, we all kind of have to confront and struggle with. And then there's a question that comes on the back end of that, which is, how do you remain childlike without remaining childish? And that the original intent of God that for us that he lays out in the scriptures is that, man, the world is good. There are good things in it for you to enjoy and to share with your family and the people that you care about. The beauty of creation and you and I both have talked many times that we love getting outside and driving around and hiking and kayaking and swimming with our families and our friends and all that, and that's a good thing. And that there are things that that sense of wonder that you have, or the sense of excitement or enthusiasm or playfulness even, and that a lot of that is good, but only if it's balanced out with, are you actually taking care of the things that you need to be taken care of?
Yeah, I heard once put in an interesting way, and it really kind of challenged me even years ago. But like, we're raising our kids on a journey to become adults, not to the point where we're releasing them to start that journey. Like that should be something we're in the process of doing. And I think a lot of times, the way our culture has handled it, it's very different than what other cultures do. I mean, to your point earlier, other cultures, kids didn't like spend as much time around kids, to be honest, like with their peers. They were around men who were helping to teach them. You wouldn't see boys playing together in a classroom or at recess. Like that just didn't happen. They're learning. Our culture's changed, and really what we do with our kids, this is Paul Washer's point, and a lot of it I agree with, and some of it I don't know. I mean, but he said, we start outsourcing everything to other groups. And often men, especially in the church, young boys don't have much interaction with men until maybe college. maybe past college. They're in kids ministries, which are great and I love. But often it's kind of we're shipping them off to this young guy who's still learning to be a man in a youth ministry or different scenarios like that aren't all bad. But if their first interaction with men is then because they don't have those people in their life, that's problematic. And then we start redefining what a man is by being, oh, well, they're do these things and hold themselves this way. And okay, I mean, some, but there's biblical traits of a man that are different than that. And at some point we start confusing that.
We end up being,
I think my brother, what's that?
It makes me think of you end up being raised by caricatures.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yeah. And sometimes those characters, I mean, especially the ones you see on TV, aren't exhibiting the best values.
Yeah.
I mean, we've talked about that before. You look at what a man is on any sitcom, they're a joke. And it's like, man, is that really what the world views men as? That's problematic at best. And I don't know. I think about, you mentioned the transitions. That's something I'm thinking through just as my kids get older. My brother Trey does this thing when his boys turn 13 of like taking them out on a hike and spending the day and talking through some things with them, and then bringing them back to the people who are there in their life, family, mainly, and having them walk to each young man, each family with a toolbox, and each family gives them a tool for him to start kind of building that, and then just says something for them and prays for them, kind of a thing of like, hey, this is what you're going through, and this is what life's going to be. It's not going to be easy. But you're putting together things with relationships and experiences that are going to help you in life. And one of the other things that's a part of that is we give him a book that's been important to us. I've given, I guess, 3 of my nephews, maybe all 4, I think all 4 now, a copy of Ragamuffin Gospel, because that was a transformative book in my life, and I think it's important. And it's especially important for people like me who lean into the depravity to understand God's love, and that's a great book for that if that's something you need. But I said a lot there, but I mean, I think those things are important and something that should be a part of a rhythm we put in place.
What do you think the through line is through these things that we're talking about here? Because you said in the beginning, kind of when I put the question out there, that you saw how they kind of connected with some things you were thinking about. So we've talked about a few different things, but it seems like they've built on each other. So what do you think ties these things together?
You connected it with one a second ago with that childlike faith versus being childish. I think that's that balance between truth and love. Is this childlike faith thing of understanding that we're all in different places, we're all going through things, and I can be childish, and likely we think it's not. We think, oh man, I see this thing, so if I'm bold and make sure my point's known, man, that's what I need to do as an adult. But really, the reverse is true. That's kind of childish and a childish way to handle the truth. And so I think as you transition in life and learn, and whether that's and this isn't just for boys, I mean for young women too, like as you grow to be a woman and God gives you these experiences, you understand that I have to handle these carefully. You can kind of, using the example earlier, you can take a toolbox and fill it with crappy tools and chunk them all in there. It may look like my toolbox where it's disorganized and, something may not actually be in the box. It may be, in the bedroom and I left it there from fixing a sink or something. Who knows? But if you don't have those things readily accessible and have them built to a point where they're useful, then you might as well not have those skill sets, because they're not going to help you. They're going to hurt you. I put spark plugs in a vehicle the other day, and as I'm going, I had everything together. I had it ready, going through the process. Man, I'm going to get this done in an hour. I go to put in take out the old spark plugs, and it ain't the right size socket. I'm just like, dang it.
The one thing
I needed, which it's worked for the other vehicles I've had, but for this one, it wasn't what I needed. And so instantly in the middle, the heat of the moment, it's, I don't want to say battle. This wasn't really a battle. I'm changing spark plugs, let's be honest. But in the heat of the moment, I can't address what I need to because I'm not properly equipped. And so then I have to take the time, and this 1 hour thing became 2 hours because I had to go to the store, look for the right one, get it, come back, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so,
Subsume your rage.
not that that's not, yeah, oh yeah, 100%, you know? Get pulled over in the process because I'm speeding. I'm kidding. I didn't.
Not this time.
But it's all these things that now, next time, I'm going to handle it better. And next vehicle, I'm going to look that up before I start because I'm not going to assume it just has the same size spark plugs that, you know, all my others do. And it changes things. I mean, so I think part of it's that line that connects them is kind of being able to understand the situation you're in. You know, not being blind to your point earlier. And I think we go back and forth on this. I appreciate that you kind of hold this view of not everyone means ill will. And I think you're probably right. It's easy for me to be like, no, anyone who says something heretical knows better, and they're doing it on purpose. And that's not fair. Because I mentioned I taught in youth for a while, and there was one time I referenced a book that I hadn't read. I just knew I'd seen them, and they talked about end times, and the youth pastor came up to me afterwards like, hey, that might not be the one to reference. Because, yeah, some of the books were good, but here in the last couple of years, he's kind of gotten a little away from biblically. And I'm like, I did not know that. I just knew these couple books previously that I'd heard referenced. And so did I mean ill will? And was I trying to point people to this dude's last book to be brainwashed? No, I wasn't. And then from that moment on, I knew how to handle that. You know, that's not someone I'm going to bring up, even if. And that's another conversation. Do you discount what was done previously if people start to go off their rocker and, you know,
that
I don't know. I'm not trying to take this in 12 different areas, but
well, that's maybe a Shepherds and Stages Part 3 conversation.
Right. Yep. But I don't know. Does that connect the line a little bit? I mean,
I think
don't know. You
so.
mentioned the childlike faith and childishness, and I think that's an important component of it, at least.
Well, thinking about kids, because kids can be both of those things with each other. And sometimes when they're in the midst of their childishness, it's selfishness and tantrums and meanness and, you know, being cruel to each other, frankly. I don't know if any of y'all ever been around kids. People who talk about the innocence of children have never been around children and certainly don't have any of their own. It's a small soapbox there, but that said,
certain loss of innocence.
But there is a holy innocence about children that you hate to see the world beat out of them, frankly. But if you ever watch kids playing together, this is something that as parents that we all have to kind of get used to, is that it's not always my job to swoop in if there's conflict. They have to learn how to, you know, play with each other. And share things, and okay, it's your turn now, and we pretended this for a while, now we're going to pretend that, and they have to figure out how to work that out. And maybe you're you know, after the play date's over, you say, you know, when this happened, maybe this would have been better or whatever. But there still has to be some level of, I have to figure out how to be with other people in a way that is not selfish and self-seeking, and that values them and their experience and their perspective as much as my own. Doesn't mean I agree with them. Doesn't mean that we're going to play again tomorrow because maybe you suck and I don't want to be around you. But, you know, I've seen it happen both ways where it's like, no, I want to do what I want to do, and there's a fight. And then there's other times, and we hurt each other's feelings. But then there's other times where it's like, you know what? You play with this. I've had my turn.
Yeah.
Or, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to hurt your feelings. And what's cool, and I think this is maybe what ties it all up, either, you know, the experience I had or some of the things you were talking about, you know, can we, after it's all said and done and we've said our apologies, can we play together like kids again? You know, can we get back to where it's not, because I've seen my daughter, you know, in an interaction with somebody where somebody got upset, and apologies are said and hugs are given, and then they go back to playing like it didn't happen, and they're pretending whatever they're pretending, and they're, you know, doing whatever they were doing, because that's what they want. It's like kids just want to play, you know. And I think that's the holy part of it, is like, man, can we get to where we're all just, you know, vibing, if I can put it that way.
Yeah.
Whether and talking about the people of faith, the church, are we here for the same things? Can we get past all this stuff? And maybe I agree with you, maybe I don't. Maybe you have a point, maybe you don't. But are we here for Christ and Him crucified? Can we agree on that? And can we come to celebrate His goodness together and live life together in some form or fashion of the way that He was intended? So to me, when we talk about wrapping it all together, maybe that's kind of what I think of.
Yeah, and goodness, I mean, just the balance. I mean, part of the reason we call the podcast Unbetween is because of just the middle ground that you find, and it's not that it's not choosing a side, but just being aware that sometimes things are a little more complex than that. Mm-hmm. I think as you were talking, I'm thinking of my middle child, Christian. The dude will give and give and give, and then there's a point where it's like, hold up, am I being taken advantage of at this point? Like, because I will let you have this. I mean, and he does. He has a heart. I mean, this is the kid who, at his Christmas or birthday party, is sitting there thinking, okay, if I invite these two people, this one's going to be mean to this one.
Yeah.
So I can't invite this guy, even though he's a friend. Mm-hmm. I have to care for my other friends well too. And it's like, man, you're 9. That should not have to be your line of thinking, but that's just one of the things he does. But yeah, I think there's a point where there's just this, how do I give while handling myself in a way that I'm not taken advantage of? Not that it doesn't happen at some point. But yeah, I don't know. You were kind of talking around that, and I think that's important, because even in serving the church, you can give so much to where if you're not careful, you're not really protecting what you've been gifted with. Mm-hmm. I was sharing with you earlier. I've been at the church for 5 nights in a row, and that's not to toot my own horn. It's just the way things fell this week, where I was up there a lot, and it's great. But it was quickly realizing, like, I mean, if there's someone doing this every week, I don't know how.
Yeah.
Especially after a full work day, and I'm pretty protective of family time, and so this isn't a norm. But it's just, even though they're good things, they can wear you down if you're not careful.
Well, and I think this kind of thing works best, and we've said this before. It only works when everybody is doing it. And one of the things that I think the religion of Christianity comes in for criticism for, rightfully so, is that it only works when everybody does their part. If anybody's not doing their part, the train goes off the tracks. And all the stories of abuse of people and misuse of scripture and doctrine and theology in order to control and oppress and harass and manipulate people that goes on in the name of Christ. We spend a lot of time talking about those things on this podcast.
Yeah.
It's like, well, don't blame Jesus for that, because he ain't got nothing to do with it. But it really only works when we do what he asks us to do together, because what you would hope is that somebody would say, Ryan, you've been here 5 nights this week. Do not come next week. Like, that meeting on your calendar, don't freaking worry about it. And I'm not saying that, like, maybe we should cut this out. I'm not saying somebody should have done that and they didn't, but you would want there to be an understanding when you say, hey, I put in a lot last week. I need to lay low this week and just spend time at home. And for somebody to be like, yes, of course. Rather than, I'm not saying anybody would do that. And again, maybe we should cut that out.
Yeah.
But that's what you would hope.
I think that's wise. And to be fair, I mean, part of it was my own fault. Like, one of those meetings I set, and another one was my daughter just saying, hey, I've wanted you to come hear the youth pastor. I like what we're going through. Will you come?
Yeah.
Come visit. And yes, like, how do I, and to be fair, I'd put it off the week before because I had just gotten in from a work road trip and was just not going to be as present as I needed to be, which is part of the conversation as well. And so this night it was like, no, I need to be there, So in some ways I put it on myself, but I mean, because sometimes that is what you're supposed to do, Sometimes there is a week where it's just like, hey, I don't care if you're tired, be tired. That's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
And then there's times where if you're too exhausted, it just doesn't put you in a great place spiritually, physically, any of that. And so fortunately I'm not there. I'm just tired, which isn't bad.
Go to bed at a decent hour.
Well,
you're not going to do that, are you?
I'm trying to do better. I'd kind of set in place, you know what, I want to start trying to be asleep by midnight as a normal thing, because normal is past midnight. We won't say how far past, but yeah, and I did good with it for a few days.
Yeah, then it slowly
I need to get back to it.
Yeah,
it slowly crept back, but I need to get back to that for sure. Sleep matters apparently as you get older.
Interesting. I have no experience.
I'm not getting younger. Yeah. None at all.